be an interesting stretch here because I know you and I both watched Maryland last night. I'm sure many of the Iowa fans who are listening to our post-game show right now watched Maryland last night, and they're a team who can sling it around. Were you at all concerned early today with the deep balls given up by Iowa secondary, specifically Riley Moss?
Yes, I was going to comment. One thing we learned today, in the opinion of Kent State, the corner to go after without question is number 33. And they did it with good success. I don't know how many balls were thrown in his direction, but obviously they produced a lot of yardage. So the one thing I've always said, it doesn't bother me at all if a team has an All-American corner as long as the other corner is not so good. And, of course, at that point, you attack that weaker corner. So I think Riley should get ready. There are going to be many more balls coming his way right now than Hankins. Maybe over time when he proves himself to be able to hold up versus those throws, the throws will even out more. But right now, he's going to get the targeted passes more so than Hankins.
And Kashawn Abram, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly, wide receiver for Kent State, ended up with 138 yards on 6 catches. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Don. They saw something on tape, and you talked about it week 1, and I'm not saying that's what happened today, but it looked like I believe it was the first bomb to Abram, which he had beaten Riley Moss, was sort of on a similar pattern to what we saw week 1 when Penix threw the pick 6 to Riley. Looked like Riley, and I could be, maybe I'm confusing plays, but it looked like Riley was either sold out for a run or tried to jump the route, and it was a pump fake and then the deep ball over the top. Maybe I'm getting 2 plays confused there, but I remember you bringing up that week 1, Don, that he was going to get burned at some point if he continued to play that aggressive.
Yeah, I don't recall either one of the deep balls as being a double cut.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Now, might have been some play action involved. I don't doubt that for a second. And maybe there was a stutter and go type of route. You know, maybe you're trying to set up a deep route off of a comeback. So you're driving down the field, and now you stutter your feet a little bit to give him a thought that you're running a comeback. And now, of course, you burst deep down the field. Maybe it was a stutter and go. Maybe it was strictly a go route. To be honest with you, I'm sure it wasn't just a plain old-fashioned go route. But the bottom line is both times he was easily on top of Riley, and frankly, a better throw would have been touchdown probably in one or both cases.
Event Tide says Ivory Kelly Martin does indeed have a fumbling problem. It isn't like he does not get good positive yards. It just doesn't do much good when he fumbles. I hope they can curb the problem. Absolutely. I think he's running well, Don. It seems like he's running well, and it seems like these fumbles are coming actually off after good runs.
Yeah, I think you're right. He certainly ran well last week, and I even commented that I thought he was a really good solution to Goodson last week against Iowa State. He had 8 for 28 yards last week, and he's certainly a capable runner. And maybe if we just simply give it a chance to go away over the next couple of weeks, maybe that reputation that he's starting to gain as a fumbler, maybe that'll go away too. And at that point, maybe those teams won't be quite so confident in their thought process that they're going to get the ball out versus Kelly Martin.
We've got a phone call here for you, Don. Thank you for calling Iowa Post Game at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Adam Hansen.
Hi, Adam.
So the question is how do you guys feel about the offense today? Do you think that it was actually better than the first 2 weeks, even knowing that they had like kind of really good DBs and everything?
I can give you my opinion first, and then maybe Don wants to follow up. I kind of stated earlier in the show, the run game looked better. There was more consistency up front. Again, how much do you weigh opponents? Because I think Iowa State's defensive line was solid. Indiana's DBs were solid. I don't know about their defensive line, but I'm weighing opponent a lot in this. I did not see any improvement from a passing standpoint. Again, it's hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for you if you weren't at the game, to see what's going on down the field. But what I'm seeing are a lot of checkdowns. So either A, receivers are not getting separation, or B, Spencer's missing them. Don, you want to add to that?
Well, a lot of the throws that were made today, to be honest, I would have a chance to hit on those throws too. Because like you say, they were checkdowns. They were balls that were physically thrown no more than 15 yards probably from when they left the hand of the quarterback. The thing you hope to see, you would hope today that there were some necessary conversions on critical downs when the game was still tight, and that Spencer would come through in great fashion on those. And you really didn't see a lot of that. It wasn't all his fault necessarily. Maybe the play simply was designed to do something else. I don't recall what we did overall on critical downs. I think we did better than we have been. That was the priority going in. I can talk about the analytics a little bit as we get going here, but the bottom line, there weren't a lot of really challenging throws that Spencer had to make. They were high percentage throws, and the numbers looked pretty good, but you can't say too many of them were the kind of throws that the average quarterback might not be able to make. They were all throws that the average quarterback should certainly be able to have a good chance to convert on too.
Anything else, caller?
Do you think that they're ready to face Penn State?
Ready to face who?
Penn State.
I'm just hoping they're ready to face Colorado State.
I agree. And you know what? We're going to get a good feeler for Penn State tonight. We're not going to run this post-game show a long, long time tonight because I think Don and I and probably most Hawkeye fans want to watch Auburn Penn State tonight. But I agree with you, Don, and I'm glad they get Maryland before Penn State because if I had to pick a team right now that would be my favorite in the East, it might be Penn State because Ohio State, I didn't catch. Did Ohio State pull the game out? Did anybody know?
They did.
Okay.
Tulsa's a little bit like Kent State. You know, they play you tough, especially if you take them lightly. For whatever reason, Tulsa played them pretty tough. I know they ran for a lot of yards. Ohio State had a back that went for like 250, I think. So it was one of those games. Tulsa kind of hung in there, and in the end, I think it was 41-20 or something, I believe.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, they pulled away toward the fourth quarter, I believe. Here's one you might not be aware of. Do you have a score on Colorado State and Toledo? Because I do.
What do you got, Don?
Are you in suspense?
Well, Toledo almost knocked off Notre Dame, so
yes, they did. I believe just 1 week ago, maybe.
Yes, last week.
Well, I haven't. I've taped the game. I'm going to look at it later, but I happened to turn it on when I first got home, and to my surprise, at the end of the game, it was 19-6 in favor of Colorado State. You realize they were playing at Toledo. That's one reason I thought it'd be a Toledo win. Secondly, if the same Toledo showed up for Colorado State that played against Notre Dame, you would certainly expect another win. Did not happen. 22-6 Colorado State. And we can talk a little bit later about them. But as I looked at them, I've looked at all their games. I haven't obviously broken down today's game, but I've looked at the other 6 games. That's 4 from a year ago and 2 from this year. And they start their season, of course, by losing to a very good South Dakota State team. But they're playing at home. They're playing at FCS school. You know, you'd like to think you can find a way to win that. Yeah. And it didn't happen. And then Vanderbilt beats them also out in Fort Collins, I believe.
And let's remember that Penn State has not been, you know, I think we had somebody last week talk about Penn State, and I know Jared made a comment that he thinks they'll be the biggest offensive test of the year. We haven't really seen anything from Penn State. I mean, that game against Wisconsin week 1 was ugly. There's not a lot of offense in that game. And then week 2, I don't even know who Penn State played. Nobody of any consequence, I don't think. Right. So, you know, that yes, caller, that game is not long in the future. But as Don pointed out, Colorado State and certainly Maryland's tricky first.
Very much so. That game last night, you'll find this interesting. You've heard me say, in looking at last season in the Big Ten, if you won on turnovers, you were virtually guaranteed to win the game, right? Yeah. Well, guess who won on turnovers last night? Illinois did. They were only +1, but they still managed to find a way to lose the game, and they're the same team that lost twice on turnovers a year ago. So Illinois is just struggling to win, obviously. And Maryland actually had 2 more explosive plays than Illinois. They both had explosive plays. As I recall, Maryland had 8 explosive plays of 20 yards or more. That's pretty typical for them. Illinois ended up with 6. The yardage, as I recall, both of them totaled about 200 yards. So Maryland's a very dangerous team. We have to play them on a short week. We have to be the team on the road in a short week. And we talked about that earlier, Corey, off the air. And that's a discussion I guess maybe we could have too. But the bottom line is that Colorado State all of a sudden has our attention. I'll promise you, Kirk is not going to enjoy this Saturday night as much as he hoped, because he's already been made aware, I'm sure, that Colorado State went to Toledo and won. And people didn't expect that.
I want to thank the caller there for the question. Again, if you want to ask Don or myself a question, call us 860-499-3332, 860-499-3332. And Don, while we have a minute, I want to run through a couple other questions for you, and I love to make notes during the game that I want to ask you about later. So my first question is, early on in this game, and in fact, I think it was every kickoff that Kent State had, they were kicking away from Charlie Jones. And I'm just curious about coaching philosophy for you. Is it basically a standard for whoever it is, whether it's a fullback or a tight end who ends up catching that, to fair catch the ball? Because I thought Sam could have advanced the ball a couple of times. Thank
you very much. You're correct.
Okay.
A ball that is fair caught, if you're standing on the 25-yard line, is a ball with a lot of hang time. Typically, it's hit into the. Of course, we didn't have any wind today, so the balls that were coming down today on the 25-yard line didn't have much hang time. I think it's safe to say, let's realize LaPorta's above average as a runner. It's not hard to imagine at all he would at least advance them 10 yards.
Correct.
The guys up front are coached, I'm sure, to go ahead and to recognize it's a short kick, get their blocks immediately. And it'd be hard for me to believe that Sam wouldn't have returned each of those kicks to him for, on average, at least 10 yards. So that's a little bit of lost field position on our part today.
I'm glad you said that, Don, because I thought, well, maybe I'm nitpicking, but when I saw that, I thought, well, he's more than capable of carrying the football. In fact, he's as far as he reminds me a bit of TJ Hawkinson as far as a guy who's actually very, very capable. I'd be comfortable with him taking a handoff once in a while on a fullback, or we call it a tight end plunge or something. But I was a little bit confused as to why they were having him fair catch. Was that probably a coaching decision, or is that just you think that's just him making that decision midair?
I would think if it wasn't addressed before they broke the huddle, he would simply default to the fair catch. In other words, I would think that he would need to be told off the bench, listen, we've already seen one of those kicks. The ball does not have much hang time. Sam, you're a good runner. Let's discourage you from doing this to us. Let's go ahead and catch the ball and advance it. And let's make them pay for blooping the ball to the 25-yard line, 30-yard line. Let's start off on the 40. They'll think twice about kicking it over here to you again. And all you guys up front, understand that we're going to advance the ball. So it's critical that you get your blocks.